Hello everyone. I saw this very interesting thread on Spectrum yesterday. Commander Immortalus, where is Chris? I'm asking seriously, not as a meme or as a personal attack. At this point, normal sales event comms are not enough to carry community trust by themselves anymore. A lot of backers are frustrated with God of War 2 silence, shard account issues, vibes, exploit concerns, support inconsistencies, and the feeling that CRG is clearer when it's time to sell than when it's time to answer hard questions. I'm not saying Chris needs to personally answer every bug report or patch issue, but this project is too big, too founded, and too tied to his original vision for leadership to feel absent during a moment like this. I'm saying this as someone who wants the project to succeed. I've followed development for over 10 years. I don't want Star Citizen to fail. I want CRG to get back in front of these trust issues before the community fills the science with its own worst assumptions. I'm not posting this to argue every detail or debate everyone's individual frustrations. I'm saying that, given the current trust issues around the project, Chris' visible presence and direct communication feels necessary right now. I understand funding matters, but we don't need another hype cycle right now. We need visible leadership, direct communication, and a real update on where God of War 2 and the PU actually stand. A shaman letter, God of War 2 status update, or direct community address would go a long way. I cannot agree more. I've said this in my videos for quite a while now. Chris is very much absent for at least 5 or 6 years by now. All we get from Chris is his yearly letter from a shaman in December, and occasionally he pops up at a CitizenCon event. This was very different in the past. Chris showed up a lot more in CRG's weekly shows. Well, when we still had weekly shows. This has changed too. I don't want Star Citizen to fail either. I want Star Citizen to become a fantastic game and a huge success. I just don't have any hope anymore with Chris and CRG's top management. Chris not even showing up much anymore doesn't exactly help. I will show you now some of the comments. It's pretty much obvious that CRG Spectrum moderators didn't work at the weekend and they are still asleep. Commander closed wallet. If we are lucky, the board has fired him. Shots fired. Get to the shopper! BR44, that was a very cruel thing to say. How would you feel if some stranger said that about you? Alarmist, to be fair, that's essentially what it took to get the last game published. Yeah, Microsoft took over Freelancer and they had to remove Chris in order to finish the game Freelancer. Kuma, the problem is that Chris Roberts has a history outside of Wing Commander and it's not as great as his early successes with Wing Commander. Unfortunately for us, he seems to be falling into his old bad habits the longer things go on. If he was working for a publisher, he would have been sacked a long time ago, or he would have quit before they could force him to actually have to finish something. Anything. That's what he did with Digital Anvil and Freelancer after completely blowing the budget and way overpromising with continual feature creep. Exactly this. Yes, Chris released some very good games back in the days, Wing Commander 1, 2, 3, and 4. But back in the days, Chris had someone looking over his shoulders. Warren Spector and Richard Garriott. Chris always says he values his independence, but for some people, evil publishers are actually needed.
There you go. And then the other aspect is being able to do that properly, being able to fund it without having to go to someone. There's a lot of other people in the crowdfunding world anyway that have raised the money, made the game, and then partnered with someone like a publisher to release the game in a wider format. But we don't want to do that. We've always, I value the independence. We've been able to have the independence because of all you guys, and we really appreciate it. And so for us, it was really important to be able to control our own destiny. And this is really going to enable us to do that and also have all the money that comes in on the sort of game front, the crowdfunding, go to the developer.
And this is how they talk about him.
Whips, chains, total bastard. Total bastard. Unbelievable.
No, it is interesting though, and there are different ways. What's funny is there was a cartoon that I'm sure Warren remembers too that included me, Warren, and Chris Roberts, and our different management styles, and the pitfalls of each of them. And the insult to, they were all insulting. And the insult to Chris Roberts was game designed by decree, which really was the way Chris Roberts operated in many respects. I mean, Chris Roberts, the good part about Chris Roberts was when he'd had the vision for what a wing commander was going to be, and he came and sat down and pitched it to us all, we all went, damn, he's right, it's going to work. I mean, he could describe it in a way that you just knew he was right and it was going to work. And so everybody, we invested in it because he was right and it did work. The downside of that is that when you went to work with Chris Roberts, you did everything exactly the way he said to do it, period, or you were fired almost immediately. No second chances. I mean, he was very explicit with what he wanted, and you either did it that way or you were not part of his team.
I literally heard him say, "Make that pixel blue, not green."
And yeah, I mean, so it was a place where only certain individuals could survive it. I mean, they had to be very talented, but on the other hand, they also had to be very subservient in their demeanor, if you know what I mean.
Sun on Gold, for a game that cost $1 billion in crowdfunding so far, I don't see that reflected in the game at all. Not even 10% of that. Where's all the money? We are talking about $1 billion US. What we see today in the PU does not reflect that amount of money. I'm saying this in my videos for quite a while. For year 14 and more than $1 billion in funding, Chris has very little to show for. A buggy, laggy tech demo with missing basics, missing mechanics, almost no physics, elevators still don't work reliably, not even the flight model is finished in year 14. The flight model is such an essential part of the game, it should have been nailed down in year 2 or 3. According to leaks, Chris has allegedly put at least $500 million exclusively into Squadron 42, and this was 1.5 years ago. So it's safe to assume that Squadron 42 got most of the money. But most of us who bought ships because of the PU, not because of a single player game. I would be very surprised if the PU has even seen $100 million. Another issue is, Chris never has a plan, never has a concept, never thinks in advance, and never thinks things through. As a consequence, we have reworks of reworks of reworks of reworks of reworks of reworks. Chris seems to think reworks don't cost time and money. Chris, they do. In addition, CRT's code is old and rotten by now, but they are still putting new things onto this old code base. If you want to make a game like Star Citizen, which is a very huge and very ambitious project, you need to have a good code foundation. Not old and rotten code with quick and dirty fixes, several layers on top of each other. A very well-known CRT dev confirmed this to me. Another thing that's hard to believe, but it's really true. Even if you don't know how containers are supposed to get moved later, you still should set container sizes at the start of development. Let's say 20 40-foot containers, or what we have now in the game, 1, 2, 3, 4, 8, 16, 24, and 32 SU containers. If you define container sizes right at the start, you can design spaceships without wasting too much space inside. You can eliminate choke points like low ceilings, doors, elevators, ramps, right from the start. You don't have to rework ships that way. But CRT even failed at that. CRT didn't define container sizes right at the start, and as a consequence we have now abominations like Caterpillar that really needs a rework, and it's not the only ship. With a little bit of planning, this could have all been avoided. Erwan, I don't think people are asking Chris to fix every bug. Of course not. They are asking him to be visible. When confidence is high, leadership can stay in the background. When confidence is low, people naturally look to leadership for reassurance and direction. Agree or disagree with the complaints, that's not an unreasonable thing to ask. Captain Craig, yep, we are all guilty of saying say or CRG or marketing a lot on Spectrum, but it really comes down to being Chris Roberts specifically as CEO and founder and visionary, and it's all his vision and decisions. Heavy is the crown. Bashing individual CRG developers accomplishes nothing. This is Chris' company. I'm saying this in my videos for quite a while too. The management has to make sure to hire the right people for tasks they can do. Even if we agree, for sake of argument, that some CRT devs might not be up for the task, it's still a management problem. CRT had a lot of very good devs. For example, John Pritchett, who is a game physics god. John gave us a fantastic 3.1.4 GraphLab. After John had to leave, CRT destroyed his GraphLab and 3.5. And CRT, paying below industry standard, doesn't exactly help. You don't get good people that way. What you get are young, cheap, and inexperienced people. The good ones leave after 1 or 2 years. And again, yes, this is a management problem. Aptable, he's fine, don't worry. And he shows a picture of Chris on a yacht, maybe a small boat. Gravedigger, alternatively, this version. I don't think anyone that crowdfunded the game would be very happy about that either if I was snapping pictures on the back of a yacht somewhere. Chris Roberts, 2013. And this posting was removed from r/citizen. Well, I don't think we know if this is his own yacht. Maybe he was just a guest. Tyson Krupp, not to be rude, but does it really matter? Nothing he has to say, be it a letter or video, means anything. I still think a CEO should show up and try to talk to us, even if it's just bullshit.
Kiss me. When I'm being fucked, I like to get kissed a lot. Come on.
Dutch, where's Chris? Enjoying life, his yacht, support his kids through education. I'm very curious how much of the $1 billion found their way into Chris, Sandy's, Aaron, etc. pockets. But so far, I cannot find anything concrete. I just hear things like he has a yacht, he has bought a $5.6 million mansion. I would love to make a video about this, but I have nothing concrete. If you, my viewers, have anything concrete, please let me know. He's in a Tony Z cave getting Quanta ready. Link to his thread is my first pinned comment below. Thanks for watching and see you next time. Bye. Auf Wiedersehen. So much for physics. Look, this mighty tree, this big mighty tree is carrying the weight of a starfarer. This is a 1G planet. This tree can hold 4.2 million kilograms. Wow. Actually, just the leaves. That's too funny. Hey, you're still here. You might want to join me on Twitter or on Blue Sky.